My wife left me for my cousin, claiming he was a more attractive and intelligent man than me. But after marrying him, he revealed that he had not always been a man. How do you deal with doubts in your marriage when you know your wife hasn't done anything wrong, but you have that sinking feeling in your stomach that something is going on? I'm not the kind of person who makes baseless accusations, and I love my wife. I love Bella more than anything. When I married her, when we were both 23, I truly believed I had found my soulmate. We met in college, and yes, we were young, but I knew the moment we started dating that she was the woman I would grow old with. I was certain that as time passed, we would only grow closer. We dated for 3 years, and that belief held true. Bella was everything I had ever imagined in a woman, everything a partner should be. She was loving, trustworthy, attentive in a way I had never experienced before. Above all, I felt safe with Bella in a way I had never felt with anyone else. Like no matter what happened, no matter what life threw at us, we would be okay because we would face it together. It didn't take me long to decide that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. And after our wedding, I was happier than ever. I'm one of those sappy, love-struck people who enjoy every moment of married life. We weren't rich or glamorous. We had a simple wedding and lived a simple life, but we had each other and were building a life we could be proud of. I never doubted that belief until recently. You can call it the end of the honeymoon phase or whatever. Every self-help book or advice column has a different name for it, but it wasn't that. It wasn't a honeymoon phase. Everything started after a family retreat with my extended family, my parents, my siblings, all my cousins, my aunts, uncles, and even my grandfather. The entire chaotic clan decided it had been too long since we were all in the same place at the same time. So we picked a long weekend, booked a cabin in the mountains, and spent time together. Bella was excited to come. Before the retreat, she hadn't spent much time with my extended family. But she had always been charming to an extreme and great with people, as I assume all former sorority girls are. So I thought she would fit right in. Unfortunately, the retreat wasn't exactly what I would call a bonding experience for us. My grandfather had recently taken a bad fall and really needed extra care over the weekend. Since it wouldn't have been fair to burden his children who were already dealing with their own health issues, I took charge. Because I'm one of the few relatives who lives close enough to visit him regularly, he was more comfortable with me, and I just assumed the role of caregiver for the weekend. That meant I spent most of the retreat with him, making sure he was comfortable, had everything he needed, and accompanying him when the noise from the rest of the family became too much for him. We're a loud and boisterous group when we're all together, and while he loves us, he no longer has the energy to be in the middle of it all for hours like he used to. I tried to involve Bella as much as I could, but she just didn't seem very interested. Not that I really blamed her. I mean, I love my grandfather with all my heart. But even I could admit that sitting quietly away from the rest of the family wasn't exactly the exciting weekend getaway I had promised. Right? I saw her sitting off to the side with her phone or chatting with my cousins, which in a way, relieved me a little. I have a few cousins who are so cheerful and fun that they can engage anyone in conversation. I'm a bit quieter, reserved, and serene, while Bella is very outgoing, so it was natural for her to mingle with the others who were more like her. She didn't complain even once about me being busy with Grandpa, which I appreciated so much. And she kept herself perfectly entertained despite being surrounded by practically strangers. I didn't think anything was wrong until afterward. When we got back, things started to change. It wasn't like a switch flipped and I suddenly didn't recognize her. She was still my Bella. It's just that little things started to add up. She began working late some nights, a few times a week, and the hours she got home kept getting later and later. She told me work was getting more complicated and that it was normal for this time of year apparently. But it didn't make any sense to me at all. I mean, she'd been at the same company for 2 years and this was the first time I'd heard anything about working extra hours. Even so, I trusted my wife and didn't want to jump to conclusions. I tried to be understanding. I kept dinner warm for her and made sure her pajamas were ready, little things like that to make her life easier. Then I noticed she put a password on her phone. Bella had never, and I mean never, had a password on her phone before. She always said it would take too long to type in a password, and she read somewhere on the internet that the police could get your fingerprint off your phone. So she refused to use fingerprint or facial recognition or anything like that. I don't usually snoop on her phone, but sometimes, if it was nearby, I'd unlock it to check the time or take a quick photo of something. Usually, her sleeping in some funny position. I even had a habit of handing it to her to answer texts if she was busy. After the retreat, though, she kept it closed all the time and wouldn't even leave the screen on if she put it on the table to eat or something. She kept it completely out of my sight. When I casually mentioned the password in conversation, she used the work excuse again, saying she had to add a password to sync her company email, which apparently she'd never needed to do before. Undoubtedly, the worst part is how distant she's become. She's always been affectionate and attentive, the kind of woman who kissed me every morning before leaving and held my hand every chance she got. But now she barely touches me unless I initiate, even in the bedroom. It feels different somehow, like empty, I don't know. Like an obligation she had to fulfill before moving on to more important things. She was just going through the motions. I've tried so hard to rationalize her behavior. Maybe it was just work stress building up over time, and it just happened to coincide with the retreat, where I essentially ignored her all weekend. But as the weeks went by, that feeling in my gut only grew worse. Something was happening, something worse. I'm not one to air personal problems, but I confided in one of my closest friends, Jesse. The first thing he said was that she was cheating on me. The moment he said it, it was like a punch in the gut. I wanted to argue to defend my wife, but I couldn't. Everything added up, didn't it? I couldn't just ignore the signs. But I wasn't ready to believe it until I heard it from her directly. So I waited for her to come home and confronted her. I tried to stay calm and composed, but the moment I started speaking, she was already annoyed just by the sound of my voice. So, I abandoned all my plans to approach it gently and just asked her directly. I asked if she was cheating on me. To say she was furious would be an understatement. I mean, she was livid, and she made that very clear. Probably the whole building hurt her. At first, she couldn't believe I would ask her such a question. And when I explained why, she scolded me for imagining lies in my head while she was working herself to the bone to provide a good life for us. I don't know what I was thinking because when she explained it all, honestly, it was stupid. I mean, it was just work stress. She was working for us, for me. I felt so guilty, and I still do. I apologized immediately and profusely, but she was still so angry. I had taken years of trust and thrown it in her face at the first sign of trouble. What kind of husband does that make me? What kind of husband am I if I'm still doubting her now, even after she made it clear that everything she's done and is doing is for us, for me? I don't know how to stop feeling this way, but I don't want to risk losing my wife because I let my thoughts get in the way. Update 1. So, listen to this. I wasn't crazy, overthinking things, or being a bad husband, because it didn't take long for the truth to come out. A week after confronting her and being made to feel like a terrible person for doubting her honor, and a week of getting the silent treatment from her, I get a text from one of my friends. He was at a local club all the way across town from where Bella's office is, which is where she said she would be. If I had wanted to track her down to make sure she wasn't lying, I should have taken up his offer. My friend, Danny, sent me a long text basically saying, he didn't know how to tell me this, but he'd just seen Bella at the club, and she was with another man. My stomach dropped, and all I could think about was asking for proof. Even though I'd never doubt Danny, I had already confronted Bella, and she denied it, so I needed proof. The photo hurt in more ways than one. First, it was clear that she and the other man were in the middle of a very passionate makeout session. They were practically on top of each other on the dance floor, near the bar where my friend was sitting. The second reason was, well, because I recognized the person she was kissing. Sean, my cousin. It was his hair and a jacket I've seen a million times in his Instagram stories. It was unmistakably him. But still, I asked Danny for another photo just to be sure, and he sent me a video. And yes, it was him. There he was, my older cousin, clinging to my wife like she was his lifeline while they made out in the middle of the crowded club like they didn't have a care in the world. She was still wearing her wedding ring. Everything clicked at that moment, and it felt like my world was collapsing around me. Sean had been at the retreat, and I barely saw him because I was so busy taking care of Grandpa. I mean, I knew he was there and had seen him with our other cousins. And obviously, when Bella was with them, he was too. It wasn't a big cabin. It just never crossed my mind, not in my worst nightmares, that something like this could be happening behind my back. Yes. I suspected she was cheating on me, but I never thought she'd be capable of doing it with my cousin. I never thought either of them would be capable of it. Sure, Sean and I aren't the closest. We've had our differences, and I feel like sometimes he craves too much attention. Sometimes he takes all the air out of the room. But being someone who craves attention is worlds away from having an affair with my wife. And do you know what she said when she got home that night and I showed her the video of them? Not an apology, not an explanation. Just, yeah, you caught me. I'm with Sean now. This time, I was the one yelling. But I wasn't the only one because while she wasn't sorry, she was more than willing to blame me for her actions. Because you ignored me all weekend, and Sean was there, and I realized after just one weekend that I'm much more into him. He's more attractive and way more fun. And clearly, everyone else prefers him too. He's the clear winner, the family favorite. He's obviously the better choice, and I just wish I'd realized it before I married you. And then she left, throwing it in my face that she was going to his place and being with him like she always should have been. So here I am, writing all this, preparing for the inevitable step of divorce now. Update 2. Here I am with another update. When I got married, I thought it was the happiest day of my life, and that I was vowing myself to the woman I'd spend the rest of my existence with. I even said my vows with all sincerity. Evidently, I was the only one who did. But even though I was already thinking of divorce after everything that happened, she went ahead and filed for divorce a week after leaving me. And she decided she'd be better off if our marriage ended as quickly as possible. We were married less than a year, and I'd already planned our first anniversary celebration, down to knowing what I'd wear to commemorate our love. She didn't even give me the chance to file for divorce first. This was the woman I loved, the woman who promised to spend the rest of her life with me, telling me I was a second choice, that she only picked me because she hadn't been lucky enough to meet my cousin first. And you know what? She knows absolutely nothing about him. She can glance at him, spend one weekend with him, and decide he's the better, more attractive, more fun option. But I can guarantee she doesn't know the truth, because if she did, she'd have run away before the weekend retreat ended. Sean hasn't always been Sean. Before, he was Tanya, if you catch my drift. He was born Tanya, but one day my cousin Tanya decided he wanted to be my cousin Sean, and so it was. Naturally, the whole family accepted him. We're not the kind of people to shun someone for being a little different. I want to make it clear now that this isn't an issue I have with Sean. This story has nothing to do with his transition. I have no problem with that. I just think he's a horrible person, and that has nothing to do with his gender. That said, Bella would feel differently. Bella comes from a small rural town that would be in the middle of nowhere if it weren't a couple of hours away from the city we live in. I'm talking about the kind of place where everyone knows each other. High school sweethearts get married, settle down, and their kids repeat the same cycle. A classic small-town mindset. And Bella's family's values align with that mentality. It's not like she's a hood-wearing supremacist or anything, but they hold very conservative and traditional views on topics like family roles and, general opinions about differences. Specifically, they strongly believe there are only two genders. Surprisingly, they're okay with same-sex marriages. One of her aunts is gay, I think. But beyond that, they're pretty traditional. Bella may live in the city now and might be a bit more progressive on some issues, but for the most part, she holds on to those beliefs. She would never have taken a second look at Sean if she knew the truth. Part of me wants to call her and tell her directly, letting her deal with the consequences, but I'm a better person than that, and I don't want the rest of my life defined by one foolish woman. I've cried enough to realize it's time to get up and figure out how to move on because she already has. The first step was signing the divorce papers. We were married for less than a year and had no shared assets, so it's a straightforward process. Now it's just waiting for the divorce to be finalized, and then I'll no longer be married. The next step is picking myself up again. Update 3. Forget taking the high road or being the better person or whatever nonsense I said in my last stupid post about Bella and Sean. To hell with all that, because that's where they belong. Yes, I said I was moving on and picking myself up, but that's a process, not a switch I can flip to suddenly decide I'm fine and healed, especially not in 4 damn months. That's how long it's been since I filed the divorce papers and Sean announced his relationship with Bella on his Instagram. Naturally, it showed up in my feed because, in all the chaos, I forgot I still followed him. The post that ended my marriage was a picture of them kissing. So I guess Sean decided to celebrate his newfound relationship by posting an official couple photo of them kissing. It was in a well-lit, clearly staged location on a hilltop. Her arms were around his waist, and one of her hands was, well, on his cheek. She's no longer my wife since the divorce is finalized, but it still hurts. The wound was fresh, and they were pouring salt on it without a care in the world. I shouldn't have done it, but I messaged him. I called him horrible and asked how he could be such a harpy to his own family. I didn't really expect a response. And I don't even know what kind of response I would have expected anyway. What I got was a condescending paragraph telling me it would have been crueler for her to keep hiding it, and that I should actually consider it a good thing that I found out the way I did. Because the truth is always a blessing no matter what. At that point, I was so furious that I didn't reply and just blocked them both everywhere, and I would have left it at that. Really, I would have. But guess what I got today? A wedding invitation. Yes. A wedding invitation for Bella and Sean's big day at her aunt's farm. My phone blew up with texts from my other cousins telling me to check my mail because Bella and Sean were engaged and apparently going on about how they were extending an olive branch. Sean apparently wasn't interested in petty family feuds, he wants to be the mature one. Right? Well, fine. He can be whatever he wants. I'm done. I don't want to take the high road. I don't want to turn the other cheek. I want them to feel worse than I've felt since she left me, not even 4 months ago, and she's already getting married. And I know exactly how to do it. After all, in Sean's words, the truth is always a blessing. Update 4. Since Bella and Sean are so in love and couldn't wait any longer, the wedding was set for a month after I received the invitation. It was a rushed affair, obviously nothing fancy, just like mine hadn't been. Except this time, instead of bothering with a church, they held it in Bella's aunt's backyard. Big yard? Sure. But I still don't feel guilty thinking it was tacky. I didn't attend the ceremony, of course. I wasn't about to endure the torture of watching them exchange the same vows Bella and I said barely a year ago. We should have been celebrating our first anniversary. Instead, she was at the altar with my cousin. I spent that day wallowing in self-pity, and I shouldn't have. I meant it when I said I was done being the nice one. I wasn't going to let that day pass without giving them my blessing, especially not after they sent me a personal invitation. That would have been rude, wouldn't it? So I showed up at the reception halfway through. The drinks were clearly flowing by then, but they hadn't cut the cake yet, so I wasn't too late. It was mostly her family there. My family, bless them, mostly decided that while they weren't going to reprimand Sean for this, they also weren't going to support what he did to me. I appreciated that. So most of my side of the family wasn't there to witness what happened next. When I walked straight up to Bella and Sean with a pink, blue, and white box in my hand, obviously a lot of her relatives recognized me. The room fell silent as conversation stopped, and everyone waited to see what was about to happen. In other situations, I would have felt uncomfortable or self-conscious with so many eyes on me, but not then, not there. I wanted them to watch and listen. By the way Sean and Bella reacted when they saw me, it was clear they didn't expect me to show up. Sean made it clear, but I told him I just wanted to give them my blessing and handed him the box. One of Bella's drunk great-uncles commented on how pretty the colors were, which gave me the chance to point out that they represented something. Although Sean clearly already understood blue, pink, and white, the same colors as the flag hanging in his room, Bella just seemed confused. But Sean looked like he was about to faint, especially when I handed Bella the box and told her to open it. Inside, she pulled out one of those wedding cake toppers, but instead of a bride and groom, it was just two women hugging each other. At that point, I'm pretty sure Sean was completely frozen, but I just took the topper from Bella's hand, walked over to the cake, and placed it on top in the center. Bella went from confusion to anger and asked, "What kind of sick joke are you playing on us?" And then came the best part, the blessing. After all, the truth is always a blessing. The moment I told her the truth, Sean started sobbing, which was enough for Bella to start pleading with him to say I was lying. Of course, he couldn't do that. But I was even surprised when Bella started crying too. I didn't stay long, nor did the rest of the family who attended. Apparently, two aunts and their families were there and had no idea what was going on. They left as soon as they found out. It's a shame I'll never know what happened after I left. But honestly, I don't think I care. The truth is out there, and in a way, I feel like I got a form of justice. I'm not even that bothered by it. I just know this comment section will be full of people calling me all sorts of names or whatever. I didn't do it to embarrass him. I did it because they deserved it. Update 5. For those asking why Bella never realized what was happening right under her nose, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I haven't been in their intimate moments and clearly don't want to be. Sean has had his sex reassignment surgery, and I don't know how that works, but I suppose there are some signs of all this. Maybe they've always done it with the lights off, or maybe Bella is just too dumb to notice. As they say, love is blind, and that might be the case here. Maybe she never consummated the marriage, but I don't think that's the case. Although there's another possibility, maybe she always knew and was just hoping no one would reveal it to her parents. Either way, what matters here is that Sean is still her husband. Yes. You read that right. He's still her husband. Because, listen to this, her family, those super traditional ones with outdated views on almost everything except same-sex marriage, don't believe in divorce. Exactly. It also turns out they're the ones who pay for Bella's apartment in the city and her massive tricked-out truck. So unless she's willing to give up those things, she'll have to follow their rules no matter how archaic they are. Legally, she could probably get another annulment since there are grounds for it. After all, Sean hid something very important from her. There are precedents where she could get an annulment without paying legal costs. Unfortunately for her, being single also means saying goodbye to her family and their money. Apparently, money and support are more important than, well, being happy. Honestly, her concept of marriage should have been clear by now, after everything she did to me. Speaking of that, part of the reason her family is pressuring her so much to stay married is because she was already on thin ice after the divorce with me. She barely avoided it not being technically a divorce the first time, especially since she quickly distracted them with a new shiny fiancé. But she won't get away with the same excuse twice. If she ends another marriage, she's out of the family. You know? If I thought what I did at the wedding was justice, this is karma biting where it hurts the most. According to one of my cousins, Bella's family is trying to get her and Sean to move back to their hometown so they can keep an eye on them. It's safe to say they're completely doomed to a miserable married life until death do them part. Update 6. For those who called my ex-wife brave for staying in that marriage, I think you should buy a new dictionary because the definition of bravery I know is very different from that. First, because she only stayed in that marriage because she had no other choice. And second, because she's already escaped that marriage, just like she did with mine. And she's done it both figuratively and literally. She's filed for the annulment of the marriage, claiming that Sean had hidden things from her, but also because she literally escaped with her truck out of the city. However, her attempt at escaping lasted as long as her marriages, which, if you think about it, keep getting shorter. Will the third one last a few hours or maybe minutes? When she received the annulment papers, Sean went to Bella's parents to tell them what was going on. I know this because my ex-mother-in-law called me. Despite everything that's happened, I've never had a bad relationship with them. The one who does have a bad relationship with them is Sean. My father-in-law told him he would handle his daughter, but that the best thing he could do was sign those papers. Bella had already made the decision to not stay in the marriage, just like she wasn't going to keep the apartment or the truck. Although the latter wasn't her choice, but because her parents told her to return those things. The apartment was easy, they just stopped paying the rent. But the truck, not so much. Because she took it with her, even though they stopped paying for it, finding it will be a little more difficult. Sean protested before signing the annulment papers because he wanted to stay with the woman of his dreams. But instead, my father-in-law told him to get his female rear end out of their house before he did anything he would regret. He told him he would never lay a hand on a man, but in his case, he wouldn't have a problem because he isn't one. I know Sean's been crying with all the family, but not even the grandmother has wanted to see him to comfort him. And it's not because I'm her favorite grandson, it's because what he did is unforgivable. Destroying a marriage is bad enough, but doing it to your own family is 10 times worse. That's why I love my grandmother so much. She's a grounded person and always knows just what to say. Edit, they found my ex-wife, or rather they found her truck, because when they stopped paying for it, a debt collector took it. That's where my ex-wife had been sleeping, as they found her belongings inside. At least she has one last option, go back to Sean, who will be waiting for her with open arms.